Welcome to the IVF Abroad podcast for people who are struggling with infertility and trying to conceive, and who are facing more obstacles than options when it comes to having fertility testing or treatment in their home countries. Alongside other experts, I will share, educate and empower you on your journey and help you to learn more about going abroad for advanced fertility testing and treatments like IVF and egg donation. I'm Emma Haslam, your host, now mum of one, and the go-to expert in fertility treatment abroad. Since the birth of our son in 2018, I have made it my mission to make fertility treatment more informed, transparent, accessible, supported and affordable for more people. And I help people just like you to become unstuck, to find a best fit clinic that truly meets their needs, and to have fertility treatment on their terms and timescales so they can achieve their dreams of growing their families. And I'm here now to help you too. Be sure to check out the free resources in the show notes for more help after listening to today's episode. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the IVF Abroad podcast. And this week I have a special guest here with me, Samantha Catanach, founder of Chasing Rainbows Infertility and Baby Loss Support Charity. The charity is dedicated to supporting families experiencing baby loss, infertility, and recurrent miscarriage. And the charity was founded by Samantha and has become a beacon of hope for hundreds of families in their darkest moments. And I wanted to bring Samantha on because we met, didn't we, at the fertility show?
We did, yeah.
In May this year. And we got chatting, and she's a fellow Yorkshire lass. And she was telling me more about the work that she does and the people who work for the charity do. And I really wanted to bring her on to be able to share more information about that with you, because I think it'll be helpful for lots of people listening to this who will have been affected by things like baby loss, infertility, obviously, recurrent miscarriage, etc. And also because you've got a story as well to tell, which you've kindly offered to come on and share with other people as well, which kind of then led you to setting up the charity. So first of all, welcome and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, so do you want to take us back then to the kind of beginning of your journey, sort of personally, before you set up the charity?
Yeah, absolutely. So me and my husband started trying for a baby in early 2017. And we were very lucky that the first month, what we classed as trying, I got a positive pregnancy test and I was pregnant straight away. And naively, I had this positive test and I worked out when I was due and when I would go on maternity leave and, when I would have a baby shower and all these kinds of things. But then sadly, I was brought back to reality with a bang when the pregnancy ended and I suffered my first miscarriage. So me and my husband in total have had 5 miscarriages, and we do now have 2 living children, which I am very thankful for and feel very lucky to have. So we had 4 miscarriages before having our living son Ted, and then during lockdown I had a 5th miscarriage before then having my living daughter Blossom. Now, when we were going through the losses back in 2017, I would say that baby loss and infertility were a very taboo subject, and there was just nothing. There was absolutely nothing in terms of support and what to do. And people in general life did not really talk about miscarriage or baby loss. I never knew anyone that had ever been through anything at this point. So with the first 3 losses, all of my losses were under 12 weeks. So under that, mark that people say that you have to get to before things are going to be okay. And I went through all of my losses with our local EPAU here in Hull. And I always seemed to ironically miscarry on a weekend when it was like middle of the night and ended up sat in A&E with a lot of drunk people, and I'd just be sat there losing another baby and nobody really ever knew what to do with me. My miscarriages were quite traumatic for me. One of them I delivered at home and just wasn't really prepared for what that meant and what I was going to go through. And the next day, found myself sat in the EPAU with my baby in a Tupperware tub in my handbag.
Oh.
And I saw a couple, so in the same area as the EPAU back then, there was a normal antenatal scan room, and I saw a couple come out of a scan room, and they'd clearly just had really lovely news that they were having a baby girl and were so happy and elated. And I was just sat in this chair with my baby in my handbag, and I was thinking, God, stop crying, because I don't want to make them feel bad. And in that moment, I sat there and thought, this is not okay. And I absolutely don't think anybody should feel like this. And, we know that all around the country, all hospitals are set up in different ways, but it's a really common thing that to get to EPAU services, you often are in a women and children's hospital where, people are pregnant and people are having babies. And when you can and you're struggling, it's just absolutely devastating. And leaving the hospital each time without anything, feeling empty, or often with the baby still inside me, knowing that what I was about to go through again, was really difficult. And at that time, I wasn't offered any memory making, or I left with a flyer once that had a website on it that I tried to go on for some support, and it didn't exist anymore. And I just felt really isolated and lonely and really out of control, because in my life, I would say in my career, I've always been very career driven. I've always been in a senior role, in a management role, and very in control of everything. And for the first time ever, I just felt completely out of control in my mind, and really that nobody cared. I was surrounded by loads of lovely support from friends and family and my husband, but nobody really understood, and nobody had been through it and knew what to do with me. So when I was going through the losses, I had to have the 3 losses, the magic 3 losses, to be able to be entitled to any investigation and help. And that process was really long. And the NHS basically turned around and said to me, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just bad luck. Keep rolling the dice and, just keep trying. But I felt like I couldn't keep putting myself through that mentally and emotionally, because in my head, I knew there was something else wrong, and that the same thing was happening to me over and over. There had to be something wrong. So at this point, I started writing my journey. So I just did it because I found it cathartic. And I thought one day I want to be able to look back and remember all of this, because it's been horrendous. So I started writing, at the time, just a diary, which eventually turned into a blog, which I never had any intention of ever publishing it. But after I'd been through my 3rd loss, in Baby Loss Awareness Week in October 2017, I saw the wave of light online on the 15th of October, which, a lot of people in this community will be aware of, where people light a candle at 7 p.m. and often now it's huge on social media, and you see all these candles, and it made me think, do you know what? There must be a lot of other people that are going through what I am, but I just don't know them. And so that night I hit publish on my blog and turned my phone over and went to sleep. And when I woke up the next morning, I was just inundated with hundreds of emails and readers. It had just gone wild. The people had read it all around the world, all different countries, continents, and just women, mostly women at that point, emailing me saying, I've been through that. I feel like you do. Oh my gosh, you've got so much knowledge. And I just all of a sudden felt validated and heard that out of nowhere overnight, I'd created this community of people that I could talk to. And I could say things to them that they got and understood that I just felt I couldn't say to people in my everyday life. And it's really hard when you're in your 30s and everybody around you and your friendships are having babies and just getting pregnant and don't, even though they were wonderful and loved me, they didn't understand that I found that really difficult. So then at this point, because the NHS had said there's nothing wrong with you, we were in a very privileged position that we were fortunate enough to be able to turn to private care. to look into some further investigation, because I just felt like we couldn't try again without changing something, because obviously what we was already doing wasn't working. So we did go to a private clinic in London and did some investigation into immunology issues, which back then in 2017, no one was really talking about. Obviously, it was completely outside of the box in the realm of the NHS, and they would not entertain it at all. But we went to a doctor who was very pioneering in that area and was probably the first and only doctor in England to be doing that kind of work. And we spent a lot of money. We had a lot of testing done, and straight away I was found to have a very overreactive immune system and very high NK cells, which are the cells that we all have. If we are unfortunate enough to have something like cancer, we need NK cells in our body to be able to fight these things. But my body was actually attacking the pregnancies as a foreign body when I was getting pregnant. And I was also found to have thyroid issues and things that the NHS had said were normal and within NHS normal range for Joe Blogs. But actually, for fertility purposes, when you do the research, it was too high. But the NHS wouldn't pick up on it and wouldn't treat it. So I was treated for a whole host of things that this private clinic found. And I was given an immune protocol. So that when we tried again, the plan was to suppress my immune system so much that basically my body wouldn't attack the fetus. So I got pregnant a fourth time and got further than I ever had before. We had a scan, we had a heartbeat, and I thought, my gosh, this is it, we've cracked it. And that loss was devastating for me, because when we went back and there wasn't a heartbeat, it floored me, and I went into a bad place thinking, oh my God, we've spent over £10,000 and even this treatment isn't working, and what, we're never going to be parents. And because it was my fourth loss, that baby was able to be sent for testing. And so this was the baby that I passed at home and took into the hospital in a Tupperware tub, and then it was sent away to a lab for testing. And during that time was referred to as tissue and product and all kinds of things, but it was actually my baby. And the clinic said to me, you have to try a protocol more than once, because if this was an unviable pregnancy, no treatment protocol is going to save an unviable pregnancy. And so we was told the wait time would be very long for finding out if the pregnancy had been unviable. And so we decided, because we had all the medication and we was already balls deep, really, I decided, right, we'll just try again. And because getting pregnant was never my issue, I got pregnant very quickly. I ovulated and we got pregnant 8 days after I took that baby into the hospital. And emotionally, I was just ready to keep getting back up and hit by a truck over and over again until I brought a baby home. So we had the immune protocol in place with that fifth pregnancy, and that pregnancy was ongoing and working out. And then I did, during that pregnancy, get the genetic results back that the fourth pregnancy was an abnormal little girl. And so that pregnancy was never going to be saved by the treatment protocol, which brought me some comfort. Absolutely floored and devastated me that I just got told the gender over the phone without any preparation, that actually they were going to tell me that or even know that. And being a dancer my whole life and owning a dance school, I'd always had this dream growing up that I was going to have this daughter who was going to take on the dance school. And I was just devastated. And in my successful pregnancy, which was the fifth one, I just found out that he was a boy. And actually, I laugh about this all the time now, because he is the dancer and absolutely will take on the dance school. And I don't know why I had it in my head. It had to be a little girl, because he is just wonderful in every way. But it was really hard and conflicting. And I think people don't talk about that a lot, that dealing with gender and loss and things, even though we all just want a living, healthy baby to bring home, things are really hard. And so I was dealing with being pregnant, anxious, pregnancy after loss, horrendous anxiety, and still grieving this, that I now knew I'd lost this little girl. And so this was really hard. That pregnancy was very high risk, and I had everything you could possibly have going on. I had a gestational diabetes, I had ICP, you name it, I had it. going on. And I had a lot of bleeding later in the pregnancy, which caused me a lot of trauma because blood to me meant a pregnancy's ended and over. And I felt not listened to by medical professionals. I was made to feel that I was anxious and I was just a worrier because I'd had recurrent miscarriage. And I really had to learn in that pregnancy to advocate for myself and to stand up and say, no, I know my body and I know that something's not right. And long story short, but he was delivered at 34 weeks prematurely because I had a partial placental abruption and I was bleeding for a reason. So at this point, we were very lucky. We had our rainbow baby, and I think then it all hit me what I'd been through because I'd never really processed any of it. I'd found counselling. I tried it, but it wasn't for me. I found it very formal. And I used to sit there in talking therapy thinking, because you don't often get told much about your counsellor or their life and things. And I used to sit there thinking, have you got kids? Have you ever had a baby die? And I used to just sit there wanting to ask all these questions that I never, and it just wasn't helping me. It was just making me more and more anxious. And actually, I found what saved me was the peer support of these women I'd met online that were reading my blog. I always wrote my blog a few months behind, so no one ever really knew where I was at. So there was no pressure for me to start update and things. But I was still talking to all these women online. And once I'd had Ted, I thought, do you know what? There's such a lack here in Yorkshire of support. I'm going to set an in-person support group up. So I did that and started bringing women together in 2019 when Ted was about 6 months old and running peer support groups, because we have to remember here that, and when I talk about Chasing Rainbows soon, we are a peer support charity. And although now I have lots of knowledge and experience and many years behind me of doing this work, that we are not providing counselling, because that is not what we want to be or plan to be. It's actually about just real women and men being supportive of one another through this journey. We had a lovely time with Ted as a baby and parenting after loss. I found that I was always terrified he was going to die and get taken away from me because of all the trauma I'd been through, but we were just so in love with him. Lockdown hit in 2020 and I thought, well, if we're going to be stuck in the house for the year, we might as well try and do this again. And a lot of people had got in my head at this point that the immunology treatment wasn't what had worked and that actually we'd wasted £10,000 and it probably would have worked out anyway and we would have had him. And so we decided, because of lockdown and immunosuppressant medication not being really advised because of COVID, that we would try without treatment. And so we did. And this time I didn't get pregnant so quickly, which was a real eye-opener for me because I was so used to just trying and getting pregnant every month. And even though, gosh, I support people now that have been on a 12-year journey, I know that 6 months of me not getting pregnant was not a big deal. However, at the time, I was then infertile in my head and this was now a problem. And so I started to do a whole ton of research into fertility and hormones and the female cycle and things. And my blog also took that sort of route as well in terms of helping people with fertility coaching and kind of knowing what's going on within their body. We did conceive again. And that pregnancy went the same way as the four that I lost because that baby died and I didn't manage to have the baby tested. But for me, I just categorically know that it was the immune treatment and that was why it hadn't worked out. So we tried again with an immune protocol back in place and used a different doctor because I'd become a lot more wiser to the kind of cash cow business that fertility is and clinics and things. And so by this time I'd done research and found doctors that I actually wanted to work with and I felt weren't just charging me for the earth for nothing. And we did the immune protocol and then I had my 7th pregnancy, which resulted in my living daughter, who is not the dancer and is a complete tomboy and not going to be taking on the dance school anytime soon, I don't think. So it was a journey. a journey full of all kinds of things, and that, you know, I do this work now and it's my career, and I absolutely hate the whole everything happens for a reason when it comes to baby loss, because nobody wants to hear that shit. But I do feel like there was some purpose in what I went through, in where it has led me to be now and the woman it has made me be. And now I just think, having two living children, that I go through life always saying, when people say, oh, these your two children, I always have to reply saying, I had 7 pregnancies, I have 2 living children, because I feel like I always have to acknowledge. And my husband does say to me sometimes, do we have to still say that? Can you not just say yes? And the answer is no, I will always say it, because I don't ever want anybody to not know what a journey we went through to get them. So yeah, that's the story of us trying to have children. If
That
that's
is a lot, Sam, isn't it?
Yeah, it's huge, and the PTSD of it stays with you forever. Like, we've finished our family now, like most definitely finished our family. I mean, Blossom's still bouncing around on an interest-free credit card somewhere, but, you know, we're definitely not doing any more of that. But, you know, every time my period comes, every month, I think I'm having a miscarriage, even though there's absolutely not a cat in hell's chance that I would be having a miscarriage, because, as many people know who listen probably know, that it also damages your relationship in many ways. And I would say that my husband's very lucky if he ever sees me without clothes on nowadays. So there's not a lot of chance of that. But it's given me PTSD in so many ways that my period comes and I think, oh my God, I'm having a miscarriage, which there's not a chance that I am, but it stays with us, definitely. And I went for a medical scan yesterday, which was nothing to do with fertility. And as soon as I see a machine, I'm like, oh my God, they're going to tell me there's no heartbeat, even though we're not looking for one. And so I think a lot of people don't realise that it comes up in every area of your life forever, no matter how much I've had a lot of therapy and dealt with it. And gosh, people say to me now, how do you tell your story without crying? And I do it as a career now. I feel like I managed to separate my professional life and that trauma and PTSD that I definitely still have. But it's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's so interesting. I can't remember, it might have been Kieran Hannington that was chatting to about this, how we become able to sort of reel it off, don't we?
Yeah.
And but when you're listening as the outside person, you're like, wow, gosh, that is so much.
I didn't realise how bad it was.
Yeah, because you're sort of
Literally.
out of it, but like you say, it never leaves you. And like you, I don't believe in all this everything happens for a reason shite either. But it's so interesting that so many people, when they've been through something like this, then end up working in this space. Because I think you touched on this very early. Unless you've been through this, it's very difficult for you to understand.
Yeah.
And even sometimes when, like, partners, if you've got a partner, are going through this with us, sometimes people don't want to talk too much to the partners because they feel like they are putting their stuff onto their partners when their partners are already struggling. So often what people do is they don't necessarily utilize their partners because they're both in it, and it's just not quite right.
I didn't. I shielded my husband from a lot of it because I was terrified he was going to say to me, no, we're not doing this anymore. We're stopping trying, because he would think I couldn't cope or I was too emotional. And I went through a lot of it on my own. I used to go to scans and hear there was no heartbeat on my own because I was terrified of him putting a stop on it. And I was not prepared to stop until I came home with a baby in my arms. And so I think I did that to myself in a way and was very isolated because I was just terrified of him saying no more. And so I think we do protect them. And I know they go through it in their own ways. And it's not really comparable, I think, what you both go through, and people deal with things very differently. But yeah, so then we find other channels and other ways. And I definitely firmly believe that from all the people that I've met that work in this sector, the people that deliver the best care and are most compassionate have a lived experience. Like it definitely brings something to what you can do for another woman or partner going through it.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like I went through my own journey, and while it was horrific as well, I do think it shaped who I am today. And I do absolutely love the work that I do and feel so passionately about it. You mentioned sort of around, was it 2016, 2017? And but you're right, there was nothing online. It's like when we searched for support on our journey, and it just didn't exist. There wasn't the communities that are out there now.
And I think that for me, because there's lots of great national charities now that offer support, but for me, it's and something I'm very passionate about with Chasing Rainbows is the personalised element of it. That there's a real lack of continuity of support, and I didn't want to call a helpline and speak to somebody and then ring next week and speak to somebody else. For me, that wasn't helpful. And so actually now there are these communities that exist where you're speaking to a human and you know that it's a continuity thing and that actually they care about your story. And because that's what I always felt like in the NHS, that nobody cared. And I knew no one ever cared as much as me and my husband about us bringing a child home. But I just felt like we didn't matter and that our loss didn't matter because it was early. It didn't count. And so one of the big campaigns that we're doing this year is All Loss Matters, because I really think that there's some that's lost at the moment, especially in the media, because I know there's all this work going on with the maternity services and, everything is in dire straits and needs a massive strategic turnaround. But so does gynae services and all the women going through loss that are under maternity services gestation. There's so much wrong everywhere. And so it's really important that we don't lose sight of, and also the people going through infertility like that. And that's why we are called a baby loss and infertility charity, because a lot of the time people find their answers in the same places. And even though we can't compare loss or compare journeys of infertility, a lot of stuff resonates and comes together as well.
Yeah, and we all have different journeys, but like you say, there'll be lots of things that resonate, similar feelings, thoughts, and things like that. But when you're kind of in it, I think it can be quite hard to access things like counselling because you're in it. And
they wanted to give me coping mechanisms in CBT, which, some people, speak highly of that. But I didn't need coping mechanisms. I just needed a baby. And so no matter what they'd say, I'm going to set you a task and you're going to go away and do it. I didn't go away and do it. I just went home and carried on reading on Mumsnet in 1993, some woman that was like me. And then I'd go back the following week and kind of have to fluff my way through how I'd took some deep breaths and it just wasn't in the moment what I needed. I actually just needed someone less formal to say to me, this is shit. Can you swear on a podcast?
Yeah, of course you can. You can swear on my podcast. Holy moly.
This is beep. Actually, I get it. And I'm not going to tell you. And also, just telling people to be positive all the time isn't the answer either. Because sometimes you don't need to be positive and you just need to sit with the fact that this really isn't good. And so, talking therapies are amazing and there's a place and a time for it. But what helped me was real life people that did it.
Yeah. Like talking therapy to me after we had our son and all of my trauma came tumbling out and I had massive postnatal depression and anxiety. Then it was very helpful when he was here.
Yeah.
But prior to that, I like you, was just like, no, I just need to get on and find a way to have a living baby, please.
Yeah.
And it's really sad, isn't it, about how it has to be 3 losses before you can get any more specialist input on the NHS.
Yeah. Which that is, changing with all the amazing work Tommies are doing, and there's this new framework they're putting in place that there's different things that should happen after 1 loss and 2 loss and age related and things like that. It's just everything just takes a very long time, doesn't it? And a lot of research and a lot of trials, and it's amazing that it's happening. But for a lot of people, they think, well, that's not going to be a thing until I'm, in a nursing home. And so it's the time that everything takes. A lot of people don't have time on their hands. And so because we're made to feel geriatric once we hit 35 in the fertility realm. Great things are happening, and things have moved on massively since I was going through it in 2017. But there's always more that can be done, isn't there?
Yeah, and like you say, from my experience of kind of clients and things, it's the waiting times as well, and just being quite dismissed until it gets to that third loss, and even just the language that's kind of used around this. And like you mentioned earlier about how all loss is a loss, but yet in medical speak, it's all very dismissive, isn't it? But the way that some of that is used can make people feel very like, well, if it was under 12 weeks, then it wasn't viable.
It's what causes the trauma, language. And
yeah,
I was a little bit out there last week and posted a post on my Instagram, which was a woman I was having support calls with in, not actually a local woman, because we have a nationwide reach now. And she'd received a message from a fertility nurse that had said, the products of conception is ready to be collected when you want to get it. And this message was about a baby, and it caused quite a ruckus in that I posted it, because one thing I will do is I will stand up and advocate and say if I don't agree with something. And it reached 250,000 people, and there was a lot of comments of really bad language being used across the country, everywhere. And things are only going to get better if we are actually facing how bad things are, and not sweeping things under the carpet, which is what is done a lot. And so, I think people never would have posted or done something like that, like back in the day. And I am very aware that, there will be people that don't like me for it, that I will say it how it is and won't hold back. But I think that things are never going to get better and change if we just sweep everything under the carpet and if we condone bad behaviour within the NHS. And so, I haven't really said yet about the story of Chasing Rainbows, but I did do a 16-month stint of working within a local bereavement maternity team in the NHS, and it was one of the best experiences of my life, because I learned so much and I managed to care for so many families, and I believe gave great compassionate bereavement care. And that's what then grew my knowledge around later loss and supported people through stillbirth, TFMR, neonatal death, you name it. But it wasn't the right place for me to work within an organisation where there's red tape, because I'm the one that rips the red tape off and wants to make things always go one better, and things to not to just do the bare minimum, but actually to really help and make change. And so even though I loved my job passionately and feel like I did a great job, I'm glad that I'm not in the job anymore, because I'm not the person to work in an organisation where you stay quiet about things.
No. And that's great, because then you can do what, you're doing and have even more impact.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned about how after 3 losses that you were referred for specialist NHS treatment, but they didn't even at that point test things like your TSH, or they wouldn't recognise that with infertility, they didn't have that knowledge that was too high.
No.
So with TSH, for those people that don't know, it can be within a normal range for everyday life, but can be too high for...
Yeah, so NHS range is 0 to 5 for Joe Bloggs, even for men. But it should be under 2.5 for fertility purposes before trying to conceive and the start of early pregnancy, because it can plummet really quickly. And a high TSH over 2.5 is really common in people with PMOS or struggling to conceive at all, and can cause infertility and stop you ovulating, or it can cause first trimester and even second trimester loss if it's not controlled. And my TSH was 3.9 when I went to the private clinic in London, and straight away that doctor said, we need to get you on thyroxine and get your TSH under 2.5.
Get that under control. But what I suppose I'm struggling with is why in a specialist unit, how do they not know that?
They still don't. So now I have this amazing session that I do called Birds and the Bees, which is basically, it's a method that I have written to help people that have just been, I've met so many people that have just been referred for IVF and told that they're infertile. And then they've done Birds and the Bees with me, and I've coached them for free. And they've got pregnant and they've not been infertile at all. And the amount of people that I do it once a month, and the amount of people that say to me, oh my God, I've looked on my NHS app and it's my thyroid, it's 6.7. They're still not talking about this is why I started doing what I do, because like I said earlier, I'm very aware that we were in a very privileged position to have finances to go into private care and to drop 10 grand at that clinic in London. A lot of people aren't in that position. There's not enough education. And I'm very aware that GPs do a lot of training and need to know a lot about everything. But the wait times to see a recurrent miscarriage specialist, and I would go as far as saying as well that within the NHS there are some amazing doctors and consultants, but a lot of the time they're not specialist enough. And, you know, a lot of the time you'll see a gynecologist for recurrent miscarriage, but that's not a recurrent miscarriage consultant. And if they got up-to-date knowledge and practice that's going to help the people they're seeing, not always, no.
And it's so interesting you touched on those things, because when people come to work with me as well, I'll look at what they've got, and I'm not medically trained. I don't know if you are, Sam, or not.
I'm not medically trained. I mean, many people have told me over the years I should be a doctor. I'm not medically trained.
But you learn this stuff, don't you? You see this stuff, and I'll say to clients, have you had this tested? Have you had that tested? Because they're easy things to test and often easy things to fix, and they can be the things sometimes that people then don't need to have, or at least it sets them up really well then for their next phase. And they're like, oh no, no one's ever mentioned those things before.
Yeah. And it's really worrying. I posted some feedback on Instagram after Friday night session of emails I got straight away, and one of them was a woman saying, God, I've learnt more tonight in 90 minutes off you than 2 years have been under the NHS, and I actually think I'm not infertile. And I just think, whoa.
That is insane. And so basically as well, you're saying that when you went to that specialist unit, they didn't do anything. They just told you that you should keep trying, it's fine. It's not the NHS one.
So I had the standard recurrent miscarriage blood panel done that they do at all trusts, which is your thrombophilias, your thyroid, your blood clotting, or all these different bloods. And they said there was up to a 20-week wait for the results. So in the meantime, we'd been to the private clinic in London, but basically they sent me a letter. Funnily enough, we'd been to London and had the diagnosis that day of all these results. And when we travelled back from London, we opened our post box on the night and had a letter from the NHS saying, you've been discharged, you're totally normal, keep trying.
And yet your thyroid was high for fertility.
Yeah.
People wait so long for these appointments. And then, again, we think these are the experts, and I'm not saying that they're not the experts, but perhaps because of the constraints of the NHS, then you're not being able to get the full testing that you need. Yeah. And also it's very standardized what they offer. And then because within the NHS realms, the TSH was normal, even though I know when you said that is too high for fertility, somebody else wouldn't know that. And you would have known that probably.
That's what scares me. People that have the amount of people I've had come to me over the years and say, we're at the end of our journey, can you support us through that? And I've said, yeah, and we've talked through everything. And they've gone on and had a child after the support from the charity. Wow. And it scares me how many people don't have that support or don't know about the charity. And I'm not saying, there are people that come to an end of a journey and sadly don't end up with a child or go down an alternative route to growing a family. But it worries me how many people give up because medicine is very subjective. I learned that very quickly, and knowledge levels are very subjective. And people, unfortunately, give up because they've been told that they'll never have a pregnancy. And there's all these people as well who, meet later in life and don't qualify for NHS support, or their partner they've met have a living child, so there's no help there. And I think it's really worrying that I think you have to, you put your trust into the healthcare system that they're going to do their absolute best for you. But what I've learned over the years is they're not, and no one's going to do the best for you other than yourself. And so you shouldn't have to advocate and feel empowered to do. But the only way of having success a lot of the time is to be in a position to do that.
Yeah. Or accessing support from people like yourselves to then help you to be able to do that. So before I come on and ask you about your wonderful charity, I wanted to just finish with one of the last questions about your blog. So when you were in the trenches of this still, you were writing your blogs, and you decided to, which is really a really brave thing to do, isn't it? To just hit publish to the internet. where was this blog? Because she said overnight, literally. Like, how many people found it overnight?
When I woke up originally the first morning, I had 264 emails.
Wow.
And and then it just, as that month went on, it just went wild. So it was on, I used WordPress because that was the thing at the time, WordPress and having a blog.
Yeah.
And I just created a website and did it all through there. And I obviously had loads and loads of blogs that, well, they weren't blogs at the time, they were a note in my iPhone. And what I started to do was to break up my diary and create these blogs with these catchy titles and things. And I guess my other half of my career came into play because I'm very creative, have been a dancer and having a dance school and all that when I was younger, a dance teacher. I started using my creativity in the titles I was writing and things, and the readers just built up. And what flabbergasted me, and it still does now, that they're all over the world. It's worldwide, which is just so good. And then I did like more of like a shouty, sweary version of the blog in the last couple of years. And now I still do publish the odd, maybe 2 or 3 times a year I get a chance to write an updated blog. And when I got the premises in April, I had every intention of starting a podcast, but I've not got around to that yet either, because I spend a lot of my time giving the hands-on support to the families that.
Yeah. But the blog's still out there, right? People can.
It's Crazy Fertility Queen. So I called myself Crazy Fertility Queen because I felt mental. And so it's crazyfertilityqueen.blog is the website, and you can go back and read it right from the beginning or not. And then when I tried to register as a charity, I tried to apply under the name Crazy Fertility Queen, but I got a letter from the Charity Commission with a statement in from Buckingham Palace that I couldn't use the name Queen because I wasn't the Queen. Right. She was still alive then. And then that was how we became Chasing Rainbows, because I had to choose something that didn't call me the Queen.
I love that. But isn't it crazy? Because I'm guessing you didn't spend thousands of pounds on SEO and Google advertising. You literally just published a blog. You set up a WordPress site.
Yeah.
That people didn't know about, and you published a blog, and then overnight you had 264 emails.
Shared it on social media, on my Facebook.
Yeah. But I mean, was this just to, like, you didn't have a business?
Friends and family. Yeah.
And then overnight you had 264 emails, which I think just goes to highlight. It's not easy for that many people to find you that quickly.
No.
Even back then when it was probably easier, but I think it just shows the scale of people that are impacted by the things that we've talked about today, and how badly needed that support was. So many people will read my blog and then now will self-refer in and be like, and so many people say I've been a silent reader for years and now I feel like I can reach out. So it's finding the right time. Was it hard for you though? Like, because you published that blog and probably didn't expect to have the response that you had so quickly, but you were still going through stuff then. Mm-hmm. Was that hard, or did it make it easier? Did it just, like, I know you mentioned about feeling validated, but was it suddenly like, whoa, gosh, did you feel like you had to suddenly support all these other people, or did it just feel like these are my people and this is going to help me and help them?
I just felt scooped up and that we could help each other. And even though I was like building my knowledge and people were kind of waiting, I think I gave a lot of hope to people because people were waiting for the next release of the blog to see if I was getting, when you're in this trench, you want to see people having success, even though it can be difficult, and that's a whole different thing. But you want to see people having success, because if nobody's getting there, then you're like, why the hell am I, this is awful.
Oh.
And so, yeah, it was, I know I didn't find it difficult because I was posting it all and I was like 3 months ahead. I feel like I managed to, and I never still then had any intention of it becoming my career. And I love my career and my dance school, and I didn't ever intend on being this whole new person that I am now.
Yeah. And one of the other things that I think is really interesting as well, there's so many clinics that don't believe in immunology, and which blows my mind.
Yeah,
because there are so many people who end up having immune issues.
Which is Europe are way ahead of us with most things, and with immunology and everything. And And yet in private care, there's never going to be the research done within the NHS to provide that sort of treatment. There
No.
isn't. And that's a real shame, because I feel like if we wasn't wasting so much money telling people they're infertile and throwing IVF at them, and actually was just educating people on fertility hormones and their cycle, we could save a lot of money on IVF that we're giving people that they don't need, and actually give immunology low dose treatment for people as a kitchen sink approach, because it does work for so many people. That said, one thing I will caveat this with is I'm a firm believer in immunology issues and treatment. However, I do think that there are companies now that have become very over commercialized in that field, and it scares me the amount of influencers or celebrities or whatever you want to call these people that are also very vulnerable going through infertility and loss, that have been preyed on by companies like, recommend our company, we'll give you free testing, and, making everybody feel like it's a miracle treatment, and it's not everybody's answer. So, and it takes a lot for me to recommend somewhere, and we don't receive any remuneration or anything for anyone we're affiliated with, because I don't agree with it, the over commercialization of things. So you have to be careful if you're going into the immunology realm of where you're going and what you believe in and who you're using, and that you're not just being ripped off.
I'm so pleased you said that. I don't know if you've seen my Instagram stories this week and my rants, because I also feel the same. So like you, I have trusted clinics in different areas. It's all about the right clinics and the right professionals always. But people don't know that, do they? And they are vulnerable, as you said. And what I'm noticing arising is influencers who are going through their own journeys, said they are vulnerable. However, they are also not declaring on, like Instagram Reels and things like that. So they're sharing the journeys, and they're not declaring that it's either a paid partnership or they've got something for free, that it's an ad basically. And these people have got massive influence. And well, of course, it's their prerogative to share their journey. It's their prerogative if they want to take money from the fertility clinic in exchange for, if that's how they want to do things. But the lack of transparency is not okay. And even though they are vulnerable, I still don't agree with the fact that they're not making that clear. Because if they weren't accepting money, they also should be writing, didn't paid for this in full ourselves. And they will know that. And it's so bad because also, so partly people are thinking, wow, this clinic must be wonderful. And like you say, like the silver bullet. And actually, it doesn't always work for everybody. And not everybody has immune issues either. But also there are clinics that I see that are rolling out the red carpets for the influencers. But I know people have used those clinics and they're not rolling out the red carpet for them.
Yeah.
And they're a very different experience, but they've been duped into thinking, people can work how they want to work. But like you, I do not take commission from fertility clinics.
Well, we say to them, give the discount to the service user.
Exactly the same as me.
Yeah.
It's all transparent, it's upfront, and it means I can genuinely be impartial. And then people get the discount off their treatment. But I knew very early on, because I feel it's so important that this decision, the clinic that you find, has got to be the right clinic, because not all fertility clinics are built the same. And there's really good people in this space and there are some not so good people in this space. And it's about finding the right ones for you. It's important that you are getting that impartial input from people that are on your side. And if you are taking commission from a fertility clinic, then you can't be. You just can't be. Yeah. And I knew very early on that that's not how I wanted to run my business, because I wanted to be able to sleep at night and I wanted people to be able to trust me. And it's so important. It's such a pivotal decision. And you do get to see stuff, don't you? Once you're working in this space, you get to see stuff. And a bit like you, I will also call things out as well, because it's not right and people need to know. But I think it's just about being aware, because there's a lot of you don't know what you don't know, particularly when you're at the beginning of your journey. And we've learned a lot of this through, for me, the last 10 years. And so it's trying to just give people that information so they can make the right decisions for them without judgment from me. But it's just about knowing, because we're seeing more and more of this as we're getting more and more of an online presence in the fertility and infertility world. We're seeing more and more of it. The other thing that I find very difficult is when I see services that are telling people they can manifest their babies. And, it's just your mindset that that's the thing that's going to bring you a baby. And it's just complete and utter nonsense. And again, it's preying on vulnerable people. I'm not saying that people shouldn't work on the mindset and that I can't have a role in how people are going through it, but that is not going to bring somebody.
And I think it brings a lot of self-blame and guilt to people thinking it's my fault for not being positive, which I said earlier, it's impossible to remain positive all the time when your life's a bit of a shit show. So it's a wild realm to work within, for sure.
Absolutely. Which is great. We've got people like you in this space. So tell me more about your charity. Tell everybody what you do, who you help, how they can find you, and what they can access in terms of support, what that looks like.
Okay, so Chasing Rainbows is a infertility and baby loss charity, and we support anyone through any kind of baby loss. We also support people through unsuccessful IVF transfers. So right from losing an embryo, right up to death of a baby up to 1 year old, and neonatal deaths. It's a whole breadth of support for loss. So here locally in Hull in East Yorkshire, we, in April this year, were able to open the first and only baby loss support hub in England, which I'm incredibly proud of, through our 2 amazing charity ambassadors raising a lot of money in memory of one of their nephews last year. So we have a hub here now in Yorkshire, and so our in-person support groups I run here, and I run groups for different categories of loss. So I run a recurrent miscarriage and infertility IVF group. I run a forget-me-not support group, which is for second trimester loss, TFMR, stillbirth and neonatal death, and a pregnancy after loss group for people going through pregnancy after loss. So we run in-person groups here. We also offer one-to-one peer support calls, and also after loss, any loss that people want to have support calls, and that goes on for as long as people need. There's people I've been speaking to for 11 months currently, and there's people that I only have a couple of calls with and then they don't need it anymore. So it's very much what people need. Then I created the Pen Pal service, which is a pioneering national service now. And it came around from the original notion of how I met women online and exchanged emails with them, kind of like having your foreign exchange pen pal at high school, people self-referring. On our website, there's all of our pen pals that are volunteers trained by me and my colleague, and all their stories of what they've been through. So we try and triage and match somebody to one of our pen pals with a similar story. And it's just another person to exchange emails with that just gets it. And, that can be for as little and as often as people need. And we now have male pen pals as well. So men can have support calls or a male pen pal should they need and want one. So the 3 areas of support really are the in-person support groups, the one-to-one support calls, and the pen pal service. And then obviously we have the blog, which is packed with information. And the social media is a huge source of support as well. People say that sometimes they don't even self-refer and get in touch, but they just find following along, watching my videos and things really supportive. And then in terms of healthcare professionals and IVF clinics, we provide resources to them. So we after leaving the hospital for so long with nothing, I created a bracelet, a memory bracelet that we send them out to clinics and hospitals all around the country. And it's just something discreet that people can take in memory of their baby, whatever the gestation of the loss. And it has a signpost into the charity on the back. And we also created a pregnancy after loss lanyard off the back of the recommendations in the Pregnancy Loss Review in 2023. And they are really popular. People can order them off the website for free. And it's just a lanyard that says, pregnancy after loss, please read my notes. Just to wear to appointments so that healthcare professionals can know, they should be reading the notes anyway, but we know they don't always do. Use the baby's name that died and those kind of things. And it makes people feel less alone if they see someone sat in a waiting room wearing one, knowing that they're not the only person that's had a journey. So we supply resources all around the UK. And then also do training for businesses to help make people more robust in terms of the support they can provide their employees going through infertility, IVF or baby loss. And I run a bereaved mothers retreat once a year, which is a whole weekend of grief workshops and trying to conceive and to try and just give some self-care time to people, because this journey is very all-consuming, isn't it? So we offer lots of things, and it's ever fast growing, beyond anything I could have ever imagined. So if anybody feels that they would like our support, there is a website, chasingrainbowscharity.com, and there is a self-referral form on there where you can refer for a pen pal or just a general inquiry support, and people can be triaged from there onwards if they would like our help. And I'm just incredibly passionate about encouraging people to be able to advocate for themselves, because sometimes you become very vulnerable in this situation, and sometimes you just need someone to be able to pick you up and say, you can do this, and to give them a bit of fight back, really.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah, because I think it's very hard to advocate for yourself when you're in it. And I think like somebody believing that you can do it, maybe helping you with some of the things that you might be able to say. I had Nicola Salmon from Fat Positive Fertility recording as well on the podcast this week, and we talked a lot about advocacy. And she was giving some examples of things that people could say or things that they could do to make those situations a bit more comfortable.
Yeah.
People
definitely tend to get more from an appointment if they go in sounding like they know what they're talking about and what they're asking for, and with some evidence. And it's hard to be that person when you're a shell of yourself going through it.
Yeah, it really is. And that's where sometimes, support from another person or like yourselves to be able to, give people confidence or the resources or the knowledge. It's just so important, so needed. Well done. I mean, what an amazing charity. And like, it's interesting how you say it's been cathartic for you. I think it's been cathartic for me as well, doing my work. So we get a lot out of it, don't we? But you can use your experiences, which, as you mentioned, still today, have not fully gone. They never do. But to be able to use that to help so many people, Samantha, is absolutely incredible. So I'll get all of your link. But yeah, so tell me on the podcast though now how people can find you.
Yeah. So Instagram, we are Chasing Rainbows Charity. Facebook, we are Chasing Rainbows Registered Charity. The blog site is www.crazyfertilityqueen.blog. And the charity website is www.chasingrainbowscharity.com. And the self-referral form and all of our services are on there. And also, we are on TikTok. I am keeping up a TikTok career at the moment. I've got 39,000 TikTok followers somehow. So we're Chasing Rainbows Charity on TikTok as well.
Thank you so much for coming on and for sharing what obviously was a very difficult time, and again, something that you continue to live with, and for sharing more about your wonderful charity, because I know it's going to help and does help so many people. So thank you so much.
Me.
All right. Well, thanks very much. And until next time, I will see you all later. Bye. If you are facing more obstacles than options and want to learn more about how to overcome your fertility testing and treatment challenges in your home country so that you too can fast track to growing your family and on your terms, then check out my free training at yourivfabroad.co.uk/free masterclass. Don't forget to rate and subscribe so you don't miss an episode and so that I can reach and help more people. Thanks for listening.